Hello all, welcome again to the lecture series by MRK Group of Institutions. Today we would be continuing with the previous topic regarding the basics of computer, wherein we discussed like what a computer is, what are the functions of computer, the characteristics of computer and the advantages and disadvantages of computer. Today we would be discussing the functional components of computer, like what are the basic components of computer, what are the parts of computer. So, as we have seen in this block diagram, what we could see, it is basically divided into 4 components. The first one is your input unit, the second one is your central processing unit, the next one is your memory unit and the last one is your output unit. Let me give an illustration of each of these physical components of computer. First of all, the input unit. When we have started off, like what the computer does, it accepts the input. So, the basic functionality of accepting the input begins from this input unit. This input device enables the computer to accept the data from the user. This data is supplied in raw facts and figures, and as you are very well aware, the computer accepts the input and converts them into its usable form of bits and bytes. The computer understands the binary language of only zeros and ones. So, each of the digit that is being entered by the user is converted into its equivalent binary component by the computer itself. So, the input device, it accepts the input from the user. The example for the input device could be your mouse, keyboard, the touch panel, that could be any device that is supplying the input to the computer. Next one is central processing unit. It is actually the brain of computer, wherein the actual processing begins with the computer. It has got certain components. The first one is your arithmetic and logical unit. So, what this arithmetic and logical unit does, it actually performs all the arithmetic and logical calculations within the computer. Means whatever the input you have supplied, the operation that you would be performing, it would be either arithmetic like 2 plus 3 or it would be logical in nature. Logical operations are like, it would be the comparison between two numbers like 2 is greater than 3 or not, or is it equivalent to, means it is based upon the conclusion of true and false scenarios. So, the arithmetic and logical unit performs the basic arithmetic and logical operations. The second one is your control unit. Whatever the data is being supplied and whatever the action the computer actually processes is controlled and coordinated by this control unit. So, in all, the central controller for the computer is being acted upon this control unit. Another important component of this unit, of central processing unit, is your memory. See, memory based upon the usage and cost, it could be the internal memory or external memory. What we could call it as your primary memory or secondary memory. The memory may be inbuilt within the processor or it may be outside the processor as well. This we would discuss in further lectures to come, what the memory hierarchy is, how memory is being used and what is the cost and benefit analysis of memory. But what here we could see, whatever the actions we are performing via computer, they require certain storage and those storage factors are actually met out by your memory unit module. It performs the basic operation of your storage of those components. Now, the next thing, the output unit. The result, the processing has been done by the computer. Whenever the result is being obtained, it is obtained over your output unit. It may be your monitor, it may be your printer, it may be your speaker, any other device that is being connected by your computer to produce the relevant output based upon the instruction sets that are being given by the user. So, this we have discussed about the functional components of computer, of memory. As we are aware, like in order to store the data, the computer requires the memory module. This memory may be primary or secondary, based upon the location of the memory within the processor or outside the processor. Now, there are certain other features onto which we actually categorize and use the memory which we will discuss, and then we will illustrate the types of memory. Now the first factor is your speed, the size, the cost. Like if I begin with, whenever a data has to be processed, this data should be stored in the main memory or rather the primary memory, so that it may be easily available to the processor. In order for the fast access and retrieval of data, the data should be readily available to the processor in minimum time. This constitutes the speed factor, means a memory that is much more closer to the processor is highly speedable. The next factor is size. In order to store more and more data, you require the subsequent capacity of the storage device. The next factor, whenever the data speed or whenever the storage is being provided by certain device, based upon the size and processing factor, it actually involves the certain cost factor as well. So based upon these three criteria, we offer a trade-off between a balance of speed and size, wherein the selection of memory actually begins. Broadly, the memory is categorized into two parts, the primary memory and the secondary memory. The primary memory is also called as your main memory. This main memory is again divided into two parts, the random access memory and read-only memory. The first one, random access memory. As the name suggests, this memory is volatile in nature, means whatever the data you are storing over it, it's temporary in nature. It may require, after the power is gone, it may be required that you may lose the data that is being stored over this RAM. Again, this is divided into two parts, DRAM, that is your dynamic RAM, and SRAM, that is your static RAM. So if I begin with dynamic RAM, this memory is being constituted by small semiconductor devices of transistors and capacitors, while the static RAM is constituted by flip-flops, which actually does not require the memory to be refreshed even if the power is gone. Now what happens with the dynamic RAM? It actually loses the data once the power is lost. Again, this is volatile in nature. If we begin with ROM, read-only memory, as the name suggests, this memory is only readable form. You cannot actually always edit upon this memory part. It is divided into programmable read-only memory, erasable programmable read-only memory, that is your EPROM. The last one is your EEPROM, electrically erasable programmable ROM. So whatever the important files you are storing for the computer that may be required for the booting purpose are actually stored over this ROM, because this is only once program as the reset factory settings are being restored over this ROM part. If you want to once actually reprogram it, it could be done once, and this procedure would be carried out over your erasable programmable ROM. Another advanced feature for ROM actually allows it to be electrically erasable, and the data stored over it becomes permanent in nature. The next categorization actually begins with your secondary storage of devices. This memory is also called as your auxiliary storage. As we have seen, this primary memory may be smaller in size. Another data storage would require you a huge capacity of memory. This secondary storage actually resides outside the processor, and it is quite less expensive also. So based upon the utility factor, it is again divided into the basic hard disk drive, the CD DVD drive, the magnetic tape or disk, or many other devices. These are available these days for the plug and play options are constituted into this secondary memory option. So what we could see here, this secondary storage actually allows you the multiple access over the device. Like if I take the hard disk drive structure, hard disk drive actually constitutes a series of many magnetic tapes and devices, and this secondary unit of memory is actually capable of holding the large amount of data. So based upon the usage and capacity structure, we have categorized the types of memory. In addition to these memories that we have discussed, there are two other types of memory also available that may be readily you might be aware of. The first one is your cache memory and the next one is your registers memory. As I have told, in order to access the data and to process the data, it is required that it should be close to the processor. Now, this feature is being offered by main memory, and apart from main memory, we are again placing a very high speed memory, that is again your cache memory, in between the processor and main memory, so that the access speed could again be improved. So, your cache memory is smaller in size, yet a very speedy memory that allows the storage of data, but the problem is you can't always store the whole data over this cache memory based upon its size and cost limitation. Another are your registers. In order to carry out the fast processing, the processor, the CPU that we have discussed, it was having its inbuilt memory that were your high speed registers. These are the costliest of all memory and reside within the processor, so that your processing could actually be carried out. So, this was regarding your types of memory that we are basically using with your computer system, right. Another implementation that we would be carrying out in the next lecture would be your memory hierarchy, like how the memory actually proceeds and how the categorization of memory begins based upon the usage, and these three factors that we have discussed, we deploy a trade-off between the speed cost factors. Thank you all for listening patiently, and we would be welcoming you with another series in the next lecture to come. Thank you.